Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a final look at the Week 8 NFL slate on Draftkings. We're going to go position by position, quarterback through tight end, just going to hit on a few guys that stand out to me at each position. I'm going to try and condense this video, make it like as brief as I can, just kind of shorten it to around 15-20 minutes, give my quick overview of this slate. I'm not going to talk about every single player, just a few, 4, 5, 6 guys that I have interest in at quarterback, running back, receiver, and tight end. And we'll talk about, stacks and all that as well. But before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, please do hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button as well if you are new here, and check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a new DFS site. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about PrizePicks, but if you haven't heard about them and you want to check them out, be sure that when you sign up for PrizePicks, you use promo code NOAH, link down below in the description, or just type that code in whenever you sign up. You can check out what PrizePicks has to offer. They're more of a player prop based site, so you're basically just picking the over or the under on the projections that they have listed for each player. You can take a look at their Week 8 board. You can see everything they have. They got passing yards for quarterbacks, rushing yards for running backs, receiving yards for receivers. They have fantasy point projections as well, so you can pick whether you think that a player goes over or under their fantasy point projection. All that is available on PrizePicks. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks, and you can win up to 10x your money. So check them out, guys, if you have not yet. And be sure, when you do sign up for PrizePicks, you use promo code NOAH. They will match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up with my code. But let's take a look at this Week 8 slate and start off at the quarterback position like we always do. So at the top here with Josh Allen, 8,100, most expensive quarterback on the slate. I think Josh Allen is a really good option this week. Is he going to be a priority for me? Like, is he going to be, in my cash game lineup or in my single entry lineup? Probably not. I think there's a guy a little bit cheaper that we'll talk about that I do really like. But, Josh Allen here at home against Miami is definitely a top option, especially with, no Mahomes, no Kyler Murray, no Aaron Rodgers, no Dak Prescott on this slate. Like, a lot of the elite quarterbacks we've, come to pay up for, Lamar Jackson too. Like, none of those guys are on the slate this week. Josh Allen, I believe, does have the highest point projection overall. He projects for the most DK points at the quarterback position. So he's a top option. If you want to stack him up with Steph Diggs or Emmanuel Sanders, you can obviously do that in tournaments. I think Allen will be, he'll probably be more utilized by me in tournaments rather than like in cash games. But then some other guys, Matthew Stafford against the Texans. I mean, Matthew Stafford's in a great spot this week. Houston just hasn't been able to stop everybody. The only concern I have here is that, Houston, can they keep this game close to where Matthew Stafford's going to throw the ball 30, 35 times? I'm a little bit worried about that. Right now, the Rams are like massive favorites in this game, as you would expect. But I think Stafford's a good option too. Even Tom Brady, I like. But Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, is the standout play of all the top-tier quarterbacks. He's coming in with the most ownership at the quarterback position. I think in cash games, he's the guy that I want to build around. I think in single entry, he probably would be the quarterback I'd be building around too. Great spot for Jalen Hurts against the Lions. He's, underpriced on both sides, I would say. $7,200 on Draftkings, and on Yahoo, only $33 over there. I definitely like Jalen Hurts on both sides this week. Just been so consistent, man. Ever since he's been a starting quarterback, ever since he's took over the job, and really this year, you look at his game log, at least 20 DraftKings points in every single game this season. I'm pretty sure he scored at least 17 DraftKings points in every game he has started in. He's a top option for me. The matchup's fantastic. The Lions are terrible. They haven't been able to stop anyone this year. We know Jalen Hurts gives you that elite upside. He gives you the rushing upside as well, which just adds to his floor and his ceiling. He's my favorite pay-up quarterback and definitely one of my favorite plays overall at the position. But there's some other guys I'll have in my tournament player pool for sure, like Joe Burrow against the Jets. We're going to talk about some of Joe Burrow's receivers. T. Higgins is really cheap on DK this week. I do like him. Jameis Winston, I think, will be super low owned. He's not projecting for any ownership right now. I do have a good amount of interest in some of the Tampa Bay pass catchers without Antonio Brown. I think guys like Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, who did really well last week, are in pretty good spots once again here. So if I'm going to have a lot of exposure to the Tampa Bay pass catchers, I might get some exposure to Jameis Winston, stack up Jameis Winston with some of his pass catchers and then run it back with those guys from Tampa Bay. I will definitely have Jameis Winston in my player pool this week. He'll for sure be one of the quarterbacks I get some exposure to. And then value-wise, there's not too much value at quarterback that I love this week. I think Matt Ryan at home against the Panthers is definitely in play. We talked about Matt Ryan as a value quarterback last week against the Dolphins, and he did pretty well. Threw the ball 40 times. He continues to throw the ball a ton every single week. This is a very pass-heavy Falcons offense. We've seen that so far this season. He's thrown the ball for he's thrown at least 300 yards in 3 of their last 5 games. He's got over 22 DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. Matt Ryan sneakily has been very consistent The ceiling on Matt Ryan may not be massive. Matt Ryan's not really a guy that's going to go out there and break a slate and put up like 35 DraftKings points. But even if he scores like 26, 27 DK points, depending on what the other quarterbacks do, like that could be a winning score in a GPP. We don't really know, but 5,900, I definitely like Matt Ryan as a pay down option once again this week. His pass catchers, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, I think are two guys we can definitely look to if you want to stack them with Ryan in tournaments. And then on the other side of that game, Sam Darnold, he's really struggled lately. He hasn't looked the same as what he did, early on the season. But this is definitely a get-right spot for Sam Darnold against the Falcons. The Falcons are another team defensively that we just should not worry about at all. I definitely like Sam Darnold as a low-owned play. He's also projecting for no ownership. Like right now, Sam Darnold's coming in with 6% ownership on DK, sub 10%. Matt Ryan, sub 10% ownership as well. I think both those guys, if you are looking for some value at the quarterback position, they do make a lot of sense this week. But that's just kind of my quick overview of quarterback. Mainly, I would say Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, definitely Jalen Hurts, obviously, and then like Jameis Winston I like for super low ownership to be a contrarian, and then value-wise, Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold, kind of the quarterbacks I'm looking to this week. There's obviously some other guys that are playable here, but I'm not going to talk about every single player. I just want to kind of condense it to the guys that I'm really interested in. So we'll move on to the running back position now, talk about running back. So at the top here with Derrick Henry, funny how last week I was very high on Derrick Henry. I made it a priority to get Derrick Henry into as many lineups as I could. I played him in like 40% or 45% of my tournament lineups. He was in my main single entry lineup as well last week. And of course, Derrick Henry has one of his worst games of the fucking season when I, go really heavy on him. This week, I don't know if I'm going to have nearly as much exposure to Henry. On the road against the Colts, not really that bad of a spot. Like, I don't really get too worried about matchup when it comes to a guy like Derrick Henry because he's basically matchup proof at this point. This game does have the highest total on the slate, 51 total right now between the Colts and the Texans. Derrick Henry's always in play. I don't know if I'm going to be jamming him in like I did last week, but I think Henry is a good play once again. I think Alvin Kamara, even in a tough matchup against Tampa Bay, is also a good play. Tampa Bay, they've been really stout against the run this season. I wanted to pull up their rushing yards allowed to running backs. I'm pretty sure they're still like bottom of the league when it comes to rushing yards allowed to running backs this season. Like Tampa Bay, they've been one of these teams you can't run on, and a lot of teams are getting behind and they're not really, they can't run on Tampa Bay because they're playing from behind. Teams are basically forced to throw on Tampa Bay, but still, you look at the rushing yards per game. I'm going to pull it up real quick if it'll load. Let's see. Yeah, Tampa Bay's only allowed 359 rushing yards per game, which is towards the bottom of the league. It might actually be like bottom of the league, only behind the Saints. So, yeah, Tampa Bay's a tough team to run on. I don't know how efficient Kamara is going to be in this matchup, but I expect the volume to be there. He got 30 touches last week, 20 carries, and 10 receptions. That's what we love to see. We want Kamara getting 8-10 targets a game like he did last year. With Mark Ingram now in the equation, now that Mark Ingram is back on the Saints, I'm not going to let that sway my decision on Alvin Kamara. I don't think, Mark Ingram being on the Saints now should even affect Kamara that much at all. He's still going to be an elite fantasy running back. He's still one of the best options to pay up for if you can find a way to fit him in. But there are some really good mid-range options at running back this week. So Austin Eckler, 7,900, big question mark. He's questionable right now heading into Sunday. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. I'm recording this video on Friday afternoon, so we don't really have any update yet on Eckler. He's just questionable. If he plays, I don't really have that much interest in him, I don't think, in this matchup against the Patriots. But if he were to be out, we could maybe get some get some value from the Chargers backfield. But I will say that the Chargers, they do kind of run like a committee. We'll probably see some, Joshua Kelly, some Lori Roundtree, I forgot how to say his name. But, yeah, like I just don't think I'm going to be going to that backfield. I'm sure all those guys are cheap. Like Justin Jackson, I'm sure he's the stone minimum. Yeah, he's 4K. Joshua Kelly is, I'm sure, 4K. He's also and Roundtree, I'm sure, is also 4K. Yeah, or 4,400 for Roundtree. But I think they're going to run probably a committee, most likely, if Eckler's out. So that might just be a situation I avoid. But I did want to hit on that because that is a big injury we're going to have to watch heading into Sunday. But like DeAndre Swift in the mid-range, I like quite a bit. Jamal Williams is questionable this week. DeAndre Swift also questionable, but I think Swift has been questionable like every game this season, and he's played every game, so I'm expecting him to play. Obviously, he would get a big boost if Jamal Williams were to be ruled out. But even if Williams plays, I still think Swift is going to continue to get his 15, 20 touches a week. He's getting great usage in the passing game this year. This Lions team is bad. They're really bad. They're going to be losing a lot of games this year. They're going to be trailing in a lot of games. So we're seeing Swift get a lot of pass game usage. They're playing from behind almost every single week. Definitely a good spot for DeAndre Swift. I do like him quite a bit as well. He's definitely one of my favorite running backs in that mid-range. And if we go over to Yahoo, DeAndre Swift is very cheap on Yahoo. I don't know why, but he's only $22. Like, he's definitely underpriced. He should be priced up there with guys like Joe Mixon, James Robinson, Nick Chubb. The fact that we're getting Swift down here at $22 makes him a standout play for me on Yahoo, and you get that positive correlation playing Hurts and then running it back with Swift on the other side. So I definitely like Swift on Yahoo, and I like him a good amount on DK as well. Nick Chubb, I like a lot in tournaments. Right now, I don't think Nick Chubb's projecting for much ownership at all. Let's see where he's at. Yeah, he's only projected for 4% ownership, but no Kareem Hunt this week. Nick Chubb got a full practice in on Friday, so I'm expecting him to be full go come Sunday. The matchup at home against Pittsburgh is not the best, but if we're going to get a fully healthy Nick Chubb here without Kareem Hunt, I mean, Nick Chubb's got massive upside, and he should be used as a true workhorse come Sunday. Now, Dearness Johnson played really well last game. I think Sunday night or Monday night when they played, or maybe it was last Thursday. I can't remember honestly, but I know Dearness Johnson looked great in that primetime game. I do expect Dearness Johnson to be involved, but I think Nick Chubb's got potential to get 20, 25 touches. Maybe they'll use him a little bit more in the passing game too without Kareem Hunt. At 6,800, if he's going to continue to be as low owned as he is, I mean 4% ownership, I'll be way over the field on Nick Chubb this week. I definitely like him as a tournament play. And then one of the best mid-range options overall, just projects as a top option. He's going to be high owned, but Darrell Henderson on both sides, 6,500 on DK, very affordable on Yahoo too, coming in at $23 over there. He's one of my favorite running backs in the mid-range. Again, he's going to be popular, but it's kind of hard not to like him. He's just getting all the opportunity. Last week he had a pretty down game against Detroit, but he still got 18 touches. He was still heavily involved, and I know that he missed out on some snaps last week. He got injured in that game, and he had to come off the field for a little bit of playing time, but he still played 88% of the snaps last week. Like, Darrell Henderson's basically an every down back. He's going to play probably 80+% of the snaps here. This Houston team is terrible. They're not going to stop anyone. They're not going to stop this Rams team. The Rams are massive favorites here, so they're probably going to be running the ball a lot in the second half to trying to kill the clock. If they're playing with a big lead. If Henderson can get into the end zone, I mean, he's definitely got potential for 25, 30 Draftkings points because he should be pretty efficient against this Texans defense. He should be able to run, go haywire on them. So in the mid-range, Darrell Henderson's one of the top options for me. In cash games, I think he's a staple. I think in tournaments, even though he'll be popular, he's still going to be a guy I do have a lot of exposure to in my tournament lineups. But like Chuba Hubbard at 6K against the Falcons, don't mind Chuba Hubbard as a kind of a lower-owned option, maybe as a pivot off of Henderson. He'll definitely be in my player pool. And then some 5K options I want to hit on. Khalil Herbert, 5,400. Even with Damian Williams back last week, Khalil Herbert was still heavily involved. It was a tough matchup against Tampa Bay as well, and he looked really good. He ran for 100 yards on Tampa Bay, which many teams have not done this season. Had 18 carries, also got 5 catches too. They involved him a lot more in the passing game, and they've been involving him more in the passing game these last 2 weeks. His snaps were also pretty high last week. Again, even with Williams back, I still think Herbert played like a good amount of snaps. He still played, 77% of the snaps for Khalil Herbert last week. The 49ers are not a defense I'm worried about. I think this is definitely a team you can run on. I do like Khalil Herbert a lot. And then on the other side of that game, Eli Mitchell, 5,400. He got a ton of usage last game, Sunday night against the Colts. He looked great as well. He's kind of the workhorse running back for the 49ers right now. He was basically the workhorse, while Mostert was out at the beginning of the year after Mostert got injured. And then Mitchell got injured himself. But now he's back, and now he's kind of taken over that workhorse role. And I think he will continue to be a guy that gets 15 to 20 touches on a weekly basis, while Raheem Mostert is out. So 5,400 for Eli Mitchell, another guy in the 5K range I have a good amount of interest in. And then the last guy we'll mention, with Miles Sanders out this week, we don't really know what the Eagles are going to do with the backfield. Kenneth Gainwell should be the lead back, but they do still have Boston Scott, and they did sign Jordan Howard. They did activate Jordan Howard from the practice squad. So it could be the three-headed committee with Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Jordan Howard all getting opportunity. If I'm going to play one of the Philly backs, it's definitely going to be Kenneth Gainwell. It is a great matchup for them against this Lions team that, again, is just not very good. So I think Kenneth Gainwell at 5K is definitely in play, but I would be a little bit cautious. I think there could definitely be some sort of committee there. I don't think it's just a lock that Kenneth Gainwell, plays all the snaps and gets all the touches. I think they will involve Boston Scott. I think they will involve Jordan Howard as well. But the matchup is so good, and the price tag is pretty low on Kenneth Gainwell that I did want to mention him as a potential play this week with Miles Sanders out. But now we'll talk about the wide receiver position. So at wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, most expensive option at 9K. Cooper Kupp, very expensive, but if you can play him, go ahead and play him. He's just been amazing this year. He's getting massive volume, double-digit targets in every single game, 37 and 40 DraftKings points his last 2 games. Like, he just continues to smash almost every single week. Cooper Kupp's just been so good this year. The matchup against the Texans, he should just be able to feast. I think if you're stacking up the Rams, you probably don't the way I'm approaching the Rams this week is in lineups that don't have Rams stacks. So if I'm not stacking Matthew Stafford or Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, I want to probably get some Darrell Henderson exposure in those lineups, because I think it's very likely that if Stafford has a big game and throws for 4 touchdowns, that probably means that Henderson is not scoring any touchdowns and he's not doing well. If Darrell Henderson runs for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, well, that probably means that maybe Matthew Stafford's only throwing maybe a couple touchdowns. So I would definitely make sure, if you're using an optimizer, if you're building out a lot of tournament lineups, you probably want to set a rule to where you don't have Stafford stacks with Darrell Henderson. I know Henderson caught a touchdown a couple weeks ago, and him and Stafford both had a big game on the same week. But normally I don't like playing my running backs and quarterbacks together unless it's a running back like Alvin Kamara that gets massive pass game usage. Did want to mention that though, but yeah, Cooper Kupp at 9K is a top option this week if you can fit him in. Some other pay-up options though, I like at receiver. I like the Tampa Bay guys a lot. Mike Evans at 7K, Chris Godwin at 6,400. Chris Godwin just way underpriced once again on both sites. 6,400 on DK, too cheap on Yahoo too at $25. I like him a lot this week. Without Antonio Brown, we saw Godwin's and Evan. Obviously, Gronk was out last week as well, but without Gronk, without AB last week, Godwin and Evans just got massive volume, 11 targets, 8 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown for Godwin. I know Mike Evans got into the end zone, I think 3 times last week. Yeah, 3 touchdowns for Mike Evans. He saw 10 targets, 6 catches, 76 yards. Now, Gronk is expected back this week, but I don't think Gronk being back, is going to impact these guys too much. I do still expect a big target share for Mike Evans and for Chris Godwin at 6,400. Chris Godwin's projecting out as one of the best, point per dollar plays at the wide receiver position. He's going to be chalky, but again, I think that's chalk that I'm just going to probably eat. He's definitely going to be in my cash game lineup. He's probably going to be in my main single entry lineup as well. But then another guy I want to mention in the mid-range is A.J. Brown. We did get news earlier Friday that Julio Jones is going to be out this week. So with Julio Jones out, definitely a big boost for A.J. Brown. Should see a pretty big target share. Should see, close to double-digit targets, I would assume. A.J. Brown looked great last week against Kansas City. He looked fully healthy in that game. Definitely like him in the mid-range. I don't know if he's going to get nearly as much ownership as the Tampa Bay receivers will. So I think A.J. Brown is definitely a good play in the mid-range as well. Calvin Ridley, I have some interest in, especially in my Matt Ryan lineups. Then there's some other guys here, like Keenan Allen's underpriced still. I know he hasn't been great this season, but 6,500 for Keenan Allen is too cheap. Robert Woods, especially in my Matthew Stafford lineups, I'm going to have some exposure to Robert Woods. But then getting down to the 5K range, I think as a run back in your Matthew Stafford stacks, you're probably the most likely Houston player you're going to put in your run back with Matthew Stafford stacks are probably Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is like the only Texans player I've even played this season. I don't think I've ever played the running backs. I don't think I've played any of the other receivers. I will say with Mark Ingram no longer on the team, maybe David Johnson or Phillip Lindsay you could consider, but really the only one from the Texans I have interest in is Brandon Cooks. And at 5,700, I think he's definitely in play for me. Devontae Smith I like a lot, and I like pairing him with Jalen Hurts in tournaments. Definitely think Smith is a good option at 5,500. He's one of these guys I have a lot of interest in tournaments. I think his ownership is going to be pretty low this week. Right now he's coming in with 17% ownership, but I don't know if it'll be that high. I think maybe that'll lower as we get closer to Sunday, just because there are some other receivers in this 5K range that just project nearly as good as Smith, if not better. 5,500 though for Devontae Smith in a great matchup against the Lions. I know Smith has kind of been up and down this season, but he is still the number one option for Jalen Hurts. He's still their number one receiver. Probably leads the team in targets on a weekly basis. Definitely like pairing him with Jalen Hurts in tournaments. I like Devontae Smith a lot on Yahoo too. He's cheap over there if you want to play him on Yahoo. Only $16. Or T. Higgins $16, who we'll talk about in a second. I like too, but Devontae Smith $16 on Yahoo. Definitely going to try and pair him up with Jalen Hurts over there, especially in a good amount of my tournament lineups. But yeah, getting back to T. Higgins, I do want to talk about him on DraftKings. Only 5,200. Really good matchup for T. Higgins here against the Jets. Just really good spot for the Bengals in general. And you look at the volume for T. Higgins, even though Jamar Chase has been playing great this year, even though Jamar Chase has been a standout receiver, he's been their alpha number one receiver, T. Higgins is still getting good volume. 7 targets, 6 targets, or 7, 6. And then last week, 15 targets against Baltimore. T. Higgins at 5,200 against the Jets. I don't think we're going to get 15 targets again, but he projects as a really good option in the 5K range. Again, I don't think Devontae Smith is going to be nearly as high owned as he's projected right now, because I think there are some other receivers in this price range that look like good options as well, and T. Higgins is definitely one of them at 5,200. I do like him a good amount. If you want to play him as a one-off or if you want to stack him with Joe Burrow, I definitely will be looking to do that in tournaments. But if we're talking about value at wide receiver, value's kind of hard to come by this week. I mean, Robbie Anderson's been so terrible this season, but he's getting the opportunity. I mean, 11, 7, 11, 9 targets the last 4 games. He's yet to put up a big game, but I think with all the opportunity that Robbie Anderson is getting, the big game is coming at some point. I did want to mention him as a value wide receiver. He will definitely be in my player pool. Odell Beckham, another guy that's just been terrible this season, but my God, Odell Beckham is 4,600. Like, I don't think Odell Beckham's ever been this cheap unless, maybe his rookie year he was this cheap, but I'm going to probably have Odell Beckham in my player pool. He's just so cheap. He's not going to get any ownership. I mean, right now, Odell Beckham's projected for less than 1% ownership. I mean, I know he's been so bad, but I'm definitely going to have some exposure to Odell Beckham. The price tag's just too hard to pass up on. I don't think he's going to be like a core play for me or anything, but he will be in my player pool for sure. He's definitely a cheap receiver I like. And then, in stacks, I think throwing Jalen Reagor in my Jalen Hurts stacks, I'll be doing that. Van Jefferson, if you want to get a little bit different with your Ram stacks, I think throwing Van Jefferson in your Ram stacks makes some sense as well. Traquan Smith, maybe, in my Jameis Winston lineups, maybe I'll throw Traquan Smith in some of those, but that's just kind of where I'm looking at the receiver position, kind of, the plays I'm really they're standing out to me and what I like here. So we'll hit on tight end real quick, guys, before we do in the video. So at the tight end position, Kyle Pitts, our most expensive tight end this week. He's been great these last 2 weeks. He's looked like, what we expected him to be. 8 targets, over 100 yards in 2 straight games, 20-plus Draftkings points in 2 straight games. I definitely like Kyle Pitts this week, even though he's the most expensive tight end on the slate. He's just been getting so much opportunity, getting so many targets. They're lining him up as a receiver. They're moving him all over the field. He's a top option for sure at the tight end position if you can pay up for him. But I think I'll probably be trying to save some salary here. There's definitely some cheap plays I like. Dallas Goedert, for sure, one of my favorite values at tight end, So without Zach Ertz, with him no longer on the team, clearly Dallas Goedert is going to be, an every down tight end or close to it. Last week, Dallas Goedert played on 93% of the snaps. He's going to be an every down tight end now that Zach Ertz is, no longer on the team. He's probably going to be second on the team in targets behind Devontae Smith, rest of season if I had to guess. For only 4,700, especially, if I'm playing so much, or if I'm going to have so much exposure to Jalen Hurts, it makes sense to get exposure to guys like Goddard, Smith, Reagor, just kind of, mix and match those receivers, those pass catchers with my quarterback in tournaments. Now, in cash games, you probably just want to play Hurts, maybe Smith you could play in cash. Obviously, you could play Goddard in cash too. But in tournaments, I'm going to have exposure to all these guys. And Goddard, I think, is one of my favorite values at tight end if you can't pay up for Kyle Pitts. Some other cheap guys, though, like Gronk, he's expected to play this week. Gronk looked great when he was healthy at the beginning of the season. He got a full practice in, I do believe, or he limited practice in Wednesday through Friday. But he should be full go come Sunday. And without Antonio Brown, I think there will be increased opportunity for guys like Gronk. Obviously, Evans and Godwin will benefit too. So definitely think Gronk's a good value. Some other values at the tight end position, let's just kind of see what's projecting out really well. Dan Arnold's kind of projecting out as a value tight end. I don't mind that. He's only 2,800. He is super cheap on DraftKings. He's seen good volume so far ever since he's been with Jacksonville. 13 targets over their last 2 games. Jacksonville's not a very good team. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. Seattle right now is not very good either without Russell Wilson, but this should be another game where Jacksonville's probably playing from behind and going to have to throw. So, we might get 6, 7, 8 targets for Dan Arnold, only 2,800. I think if you need to punt tight end, if you're looking for just a really cheap option, he's probably your best play down here. But that's probably it for the tight end position. There's some other values that are projecting decent, like Jared Cook, Ricky Seals-Jones. But for me at tight end, Kyle Pitts, I love. Dallas Goedert, I love. Gronk, I have a lot of interest in as well. And then I'll have sprinkles of some of these guys we've talked about, like Ricky Seals-Jones, Jared Cook, Dan Arnold, even Tyler Higbee I'll sprinkle in too. But that's kind of my overview of the tight end position, and that's kind of my overview of this Week 8 slate, guys. I hope you enjoyed this kind of quick and brief video. Just want to share with you guys my thoughts on this slate at each position, kind of where my head's at, what I'm liking. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to get more content from me, you want to see more that I have to offer, I do have more NFL content posted on Patreon. You can get access to my core plays. Those will be posted on Sunday morning. You can get access to our Discord chat as well, where you can ask me questions and I'll be able to answer them as quickly as possible. So check out the Patreon link down below, guys, if you want more content from me, if you're interested in some premium content. Hit the like button, though. Hit the subscribe button as well. And also check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. Use promo code NOAH when you do sign up for PrizePicks. Check out their board for this Week 8 slate. Go make some picks for yourself. See what they have to offer. be sure you use promo code Noah when you do sign up for Prize Picks. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Best of luck this week. We should be live Sunday morning, by the way. Probably will go live about an hour before the slate locks, so probably around noon Eastern. I'll be live on my YouTube channel, breaking down the slate once again with you guys, answering any of your questions. So do be sure to tune into the Sunday live stream for this NFL slate. But good luck this week, guys, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.